boys and girls. I miss you so much, and I wanted to come on and talk to you for a few minutes about one of our reading strategies that helps us to understand stories. Last week you had a guest called Paula the Power Predictor, and she read with you a story and you guys talked about predicting. Well, today I wanted to come on and talk to you for a few minutes about another reading strategy that helps us to better understand our reading. And we have talked about this in class, so this should just be a quick review for you. We know that Paula the Power Predictor, she predicts, and she helps us to predict what happens in the story. We've also talked about Quincy the Questioner, and we've talked about Clara the Clarifier, and Sammy the Summarizer. Remember our friends that we've talked about in class? Well, today we're going to talk about one particular strategy, and that is Clara the Clarifier. Remember Clara the Clarifier? She helps us clarify things we don't understand. So sometimes when we're reading, boys and girls, we come to something and we're like, man, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand that part of the story. Or maybe there's a word and we're like, I don't get it. That's okay. Even as a grown-up, that happens to me. And so when we do that, we've got to realize, hey, stop. I don't understand what I'm reading. So we need to pause a moment, and then we need to use that strategy of clarifying. Remember, we've talked about clarifying in class. And so clarifying just helps us to understand better what we're reading. And we can do that by doing three things. One, when we don't understand what we're reading and we want to clarify something, we can stop and we can go back and reread what we've already read. Okay, so that's one thing that will help us to clarify, is sometimes we just need to go back and reread what we've already read, and that will clarify it and help us understand what we're reading. Sometimes we need to look at the picture, because sometimes when we're reading something and we don't understand it and we want to clarify it, sometimes if we just look at the picture, we can go, oh, I get it. I see that in the picture, so that's what that means. So sometimes we need to go back and reread. Sometimes we need to look at the picture and that will help us to clarify. And sometimes we need to just keep on reading and see if we figure it out as we continue to read. So today, you're going to have another guest speaker that's going to come in and read a story to you today. And this person is going to help you to clarify. Now, when we clarify, remember, we've talked about this in class, that you will say things like, I didn't get the part, so I will, and then you're going to either reread, or you are going to look at the picture, or you might just say, I want to keep on reading, and that will help me to clarify. So stay tuned, because I have a special speaker that's coming in to read a story with you. So I will see you all another day. Have fun with this guest reader. See you guys. Hello, boys and girls. My name is Clara the Clarifier, and I am here to read to you today a story. Mrs. May told me that you have been learning about my strategy, clarifying. I'm here today to read a story so that we can practice clarifying. Today, the story that we will be reading is The Curious Garden, and it is written by Peter Brown. Peter Brown. Can you say Peter Brown? Yeah, that's our author. Remember, he's the one that writes the words to the story. The Curious Garden. Already, boys and girls, I'm thinking, curious? I don't get it. I don't get that word curious. I can reread. Well, it's the title, so I can't reread. I can look at the picture. Let's look at the picture. I see a garden. I see a garden right here. And I see the little boys reading a book. There's a watering can and a bird. I see the garden. That still doesn't help me understand the word curious. So I think I'm going to have to read on. That's what I'm going to do. Read on with me, please. The Curious Garden. Ready? Let's read. There once was a city without gardens or trees or greenery of any kind. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. Boys and girls, I don't understand when it says it was a very dreary place. So I can either reread. Let's see. I reread. Most people spent their time indoors. As you can imagine, it was a very dreary place. I can look at the pictures. I see a lot of brown. It doesn't look very colorful. Maybe that's exactly what dreary means. It's kind of blah. Not very exciting. I think that's what it means. It's a very dreary place. It's kind of blah. It's not very exciting. It's not colorful. I think I just clarified what that meant. Let's keep reading The Curious Garden. However, there was one boy who loved being outside, even on drizzly days. While everyone else stayed inside, you could always find Liam happily splashing through his neighborhood. It was on one such morning that Liam made several surprising discoveries. He was wandering around the whole railway, as he did from time to time, when he stumbled upon a dark stairwell leading up to the tracks. Ooh, I see that. Look at the bridge right there. I see that. If you look right over here, oh, there he is. He must be getting ready to go inside and go up the steps to the railway up here on top of the bridge. The railway had stopped working ages ago. And Liam, since he had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. Hey, wait a second. I heard the word curious again. I'm not really sure what that means. But now I can go back and reread. Let me see. I'll go back right up here to the beginning of this sentence. The railway had stopped working ages ago. And since Liam had always wanted to explore the tracks, there was only one thing for the curious boy to do. Oh, I know what explore means. It means you go and you're looking for something. You're investigating. You're searching. That's what curious means. You're looking for something. Oh, I bet that's what he does. The curious boy. He's going to search. He's going to explore. He's going to investigate. Let's keep going. Liam ran up the stairs, pushed open the door, and stepped out onto the railway. The first thing he saw was a lonely patch of color. What does that mean? A lonely patch of color? I don't get that part. Let me look at the picture. I see. Wait, a lonely patch of color? It looks like there's just a few things right here. Oh, a lonely patch of color. It means that there's just a few things that have color. Wildflowers and plants were the last things he had expected to find up there. But when he took a closer look, it became clear that the plants were dying. They needed a gardener. Oh, that lonely patch of color means there's just a few plants right there with color. They're dying. There's no other plants anywhere else. They need a gardener. That's somebody who takes care of the garden. Let's keep reading. Liam may not have been a gardener, but he knew that he could help. So he returned to the railway the very next day and got to work. The flowers nearly drowned, and he had a few pruning problems, but the plants patiently waited for Liam, and he found better ways of gardening. Look at the picture right there. The plants nearly drowned. He poured so much water on them. And then look here, he's pruning. That must mean that he's cutting the trees back. And they're waiting. Oh, I see that he is singing. I see music notes coming out of his mouth. My mom does that sometimes. She talks to the plants or sings to the plants. That must be what he's doing. As the weeks rolled by, Liam began to feel like a real gardener. And the plants began to feel like a real garden. Look at the difference, boys and girls, in the picture. Now it's not just a few lonely patches of color, but now there's more things growing. Ooh. Most gardens stay in one place, but this was no ordinary garden. With miles of open railway ahead of it, the garden was growing restless. It wanted to explore. Oh, I know what explore means. It means it wants to go out and look around and see what's happening. The garden is going to not do that. Can they get up legs? Go legs and get up and explore? That doesn't make sense. Let me keep reading to see what that might mean. The tough little weeds and mosses were the first to move. They popped up farther and farther down the tracks and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. Let me see. I need to look at the pictures. Let me see what that might mean, boys and girls. Ooh, look at that. There's more plants beginning to grow. Oh, so they're not growing legs and exploring. I think it's a fancy way of saying that the garden is beginning to grow more. Oh, now I understand because I clarified. Over the next few months, Liam and the curious garden explored every corner of the railway. Look, boys and girls, remember how brown and dreary it was? And now look at all of the color. Look at all of the greenery. It is growing. It's expanding. The plants are exploring. Wow, look at that. Look at all of those plants. Look at Liam in the middle. Look, here's another picture. Look at the gorgeous greenery. After spending his spring and summer and autumn with the garden, Liam's time on the railway was finally interrupted by winter. Heavy blankets of snow fell on the city that season, and for the first time since he'd become a gardener, Liam could not visit the plants. Look at all of the snow that's covering all of that. And look, here's little Liam out here. He couldn't get up there to look at the plants. He couldn't see them. Rather than waste his winter worrying about the garden, Liam spent it preparing for spring. What does that mean? Preparing for spring? How do you prepare for spring? What's he going to do? Well, I see a picture of Liam right there. And if you look at the cover of the book, it has a flower. I wonder if he is preparing for spring by reading a book about flowers. Let's keep reading. After 3 cold months the snow began to finally melt, and Liam rolled his new gardening gear over to the railway. So I see that he's reading a book about flowers, and now he has a wheelbarrow filled with tools to help him garden. spring. Winter had taken a toll on the garden. I don't get it. What does that mean? Winter had taken a toll on the garden. I can clarify by looking at the picture. Let's look together, boys and girls. What do you think? What do you think that means? That's a really good guess. I think that it might mean that the garden is destroyed because of all of the heavy snow. It's all brown again. The railway looks broken. The bushes are no longer green. I think that's what it means. Let's keep reading. But thanks to Liam's planning, his handy new tools, and a little help from the sun, the plants soon awoke from their winter sleep. Look at the picture. He's planting. He's watering. There he is, cutting the bushes back. Remember, that was pruning. And look, again, Liam is singing to the plants. And now they are waking up. That means they're beginning to grow again because I can see it in the picture. The garden had always wanted to explore the rest of the city, and that spring it was finally ready to make its move. Once again, the tough little weeds and mosses set out first. They popped up farther and farther from the railway and were closely followed by the more delicate plants. The garden was especially curious about old, forgotten things. Oh, look, there's an old truck and it's beginning to grow. The plants are beginning to grow in there. And look over here. It's beginning to grow here because he's watering them. A few plants popped up where they didn't belong. Look at that. That's a stop sign. And now there's plants growing on the stop sign. Others mysteriously popped up all at once. How do you think that plant got in front of that little man's doorway? I think he may have dropped it off there. What do you think? But the most surprising things that popped up were the new gardeners. Look at this, boys and girls. Look at all of the little friends beginning to help take care of the garden. Remember how dreary it was? Now there's so much color. There's so much greenery. Look at that. There are things growing everywhere. Many years later, the entire city had blossomed. But of all the new gardens, Liam's favorite was where it all began. And there he is on the railway, tending to his garden. And look at the beautiful city now, boys and girls. There's lots of color, lots of greenery, and lots of gardens. Now, when I go back to the beginning of the story, the book is called The Curious Garden. And curious means that they want to explore, right? And they want to grow. The curious garden. The little boy was curious. He wanted to see, he wanted to explore this garden that was up on the railway. And then the garden grew. Boys and girls, today we talked about my strategy, Clara the Clarifier. And I hope that clarifying helps you understand. Remember, it's okay not to understand what you read, but you've got to remember when that happens, you stop and you clarify. And we clarify by going back and rereading, looking at the picture, and reading on. Thanks for reading with me today, you guys. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.